Oh, okay. So we're live. All right. So, all right. Hi, everyone. So welcome to our live review for Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. We studied this in our April study, and so we had some really good discussion going on the boards this time, which was really exciting to see, and some really good points brought up, and I'm hoping to address all of them. And I'm hoping that we get some people joining us so that we have some other opinions coming. And overall, yeah. So I'm Kim. I think most of you should know me by now. This is my husband, Mitch.
Hello.
We've also got Kirsty here. Woo. And Michelle.
Hello.
Yeah. All right. So, why don't we start with our? Do you guys have like an overall thought of the book that you want to share to start with, to launch us into some discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I liked how it was more kind of conversational. Yeah, the letters, we didn't know who the letters were being written about, but it was more kind of the whole thing of more into the high school issues with personal issues and more realistic issues that most high school students would go and face, but some wouldn't. So, I mean, overall, I would definitely go and read it again. I mean, it's definitely a good conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Piece.
Yeah, I found it was just like a really good, good feel-good book. And super simple to read, really accessible. I just thought it was laid out in kind of a different way, like with the letter style. And yeah, I just thought it was just a feel-good book. Like it had some really good social issues that were brought up, but it was kind of in this like warm pot of nice feelings. So it was like these heavy social issues, but it just was easy to read about. Which
it wasn't too dense or anything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too graphic either, which I think would help a lot of people who maybe not know about these issues as much or whatever. It wouldn't scare them away. Whereas I feel like if they were super in depth, people would be overwhelmed by it, and some people would stop reading it because of that, because of triggers or whatever. So I thought it brought it on really lightly, which is good.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like some of the issues brought up definitely would be, yeah, exactly like you said, triggers. I didn't think of that before, but so that, yeah, I think he did it in a very tactful way where somebody maybe that struggled with that would be able to read the book and identify with it without it being like a traumatizing experience all over again for them. But yeah, I think, my overall thoughts for the book, yeah, I liked all the social issues that were brought up, and it was just like, it was an enjoyable read. I don't think for me personally it was like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite novel ever. I don't know if it made like a lasting impression aside from like at the end where you sort of find out like what happened with his Aunt Helen and stuff. Like that really kind of rocked me a little bit. But overall, like I enjoyed the writing and the experience and learning who Charlie was, and yeah, I enjoyed the novel. I think I gave it like 4 out of 5. But I saw like Kirsty, you gave it 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
You just loved this book.
Well, I don't know, like I really love fantasy novels, but I also love novels that a lot of people know about that bring up important social issues. So.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if it basically like there's certain criteria that I'll have for how many stars I give it, and I think like there's 3 things that I was like a major criteria that I rated it on. One was for personal enjoyment, so I really, really liked it. So that was what I gave my 5 out of 5 stars to. I really liked the issues, like I said, that it brought up, so I gave that a 5 out of 5. And then like for writing style, I gave 4 out of 5, but I'm like, well, I might as well just give it 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I'm not going to bring it down to 4 just because one of the 3 major things that I rated it on is not 5 out of 5. So, yeah.
I used to, hold on, I'm just typing something out real quick here.
Yeah, I thought it was like there were so many moments in the book, like where, because it's talking about going through high school and stuff, like there were so many moments where I'm like, oh, I remember the first time that happened for me, like a first kiss or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like it just kind of like brought back all the memories of, and not even like specifically, oh, you know, my first kiss or, you know, the first time I tried pot. It was just like it got you in the mindset of like, I remember like the first person I met in high school, and like just kind of going through that like mindset of the kind of like altering the altering reality that high school is, and even like just new situations in general. So it was kind of nice. Like it's a really reflective, like allows you to be kind of reflective when you're reading it on your own life and things that happen in your own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm trying to decide which direction to go because I feel like a lot of points were almost already brought up in the little introduction speeches we all gave.
Intro points.
Well, I guess sort of playing off what Mitch is talking about. So like the social issues of high school and kind of like having all these, not flashbacks, but things that a lot of us probably experience. I think one thing brought up in the chat room was there too many social issues tried to be packed into one novel?
I don't think so, because I mean, if you think about for going through high school or going through any type of grade school, there's always so much to be built on, like with going to either hang out with friends, parties, different kind of like experiences you're gonna go through. That's pretty much like for any kind of educational experience, even in college. So I don't think there's any kind of, I mean, yeah, if you were mainly either homeschooled or private schooled, or mainly homeschooled, because you won't really have to interact with anyone else. So, but I don't really think that there was anything too much, you know, too much in depth or too much social issues or problems with it. I didn't see that.
And I mean, like, there's going to be kids that are exactly like that have all of those things going on.
Yeah, even not only that, but
yeah.
even more.
Yeah. So I don't think so. Like, I think everything was in there for a reason. I don't think anything was just thrown in there just to be thrown in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting because in high school, like the older I get, not to age myself or anything, but
you're married. Come on.
Yeah, I'm old. But yeah, I mean, like the more, oh my, Nikki's in the chat room. Hi, Nikki. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So it's kind of funny because when I was in high school, like, the older I get, the more experience I have under my belt, the more I realize just how almost sheltered I was in high school. Like, it's crazy how I pretty much had no one pressuring me to do any drugs, like, no weed or anything. Like, even when I was hanging around with, like, I don't know, you know, Bride and, yeah. Right, Kirsty? Remember?
Yeah.
Like they were into weed and pot and stuff, but they never tried to get me to do it or anything, and it was just like I never felt pressure to do anything, and like to be honest, like I've had a pretty like a pretty good life in terms of I haven't had a lot of like heavy trauma, not a lot of like emotionally traumatic experiences in my life, and for that like I'm very grateful. But I mean, so in regards to like what I think about him putting all these social issues into one book, if you would have asked me back in high school, I would have been like, no, nobody would experience all this or whatever. But like once I got out of high school and started like leading youth group and like getting to know kids who like definitely like are in completely different situations than me, and maybe their family wasn't as much of a blessing to them as mine was, and just everything like that, or they just hung out in different social groups than I did that were there was more of a pressure to do drugs, or it was just more of the norm, or whatever, right? Like, or I didn't even, in high school, I don't even think I really had any friends with mental disorders. So, like, I have a very different perspective now that I've lived a little bit, or even, like, got to know different people in different social groups who've walked different, like, way different walks of life. And so, coming from my perspective now, it's like, for sure, I think that there are people out there, lots of them, who I think would experience all the social issues that were addressed in this book. Like, I don't think it's far-fetched at all that Charlie would have went through all of this. And I think Chbosky did a good job of making the characters believable in that. You know what I mean? Like, he wrote the group of friends just in a way where it seems like they would be that kind of group, where it was just kind of normal to do weed, and like if somebody happened to like do acid one night, they would kind of just like laughed it off and were sort of like warned them not to do it again or whatever. Like, I think he just wrote it in a way that was believable. Like, all these kids had different hurts and traumas and experiences in their life, and so yeah, that was a big rant. But overall, those are the reasons I found it believable.
Yeah.
Well, I think even like factoring in the time frame of the book, like where it's what time period it's set in, I think it's those types of issues were like big new issues in the time that it's set in the book, and like even like all the drugs, like that was a big thing. In like, I don't even, when is the book set? Like the
like
90s,
early 90s.
I think it was like 91, 92.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Which
like
I love that time. I mean, that was just like this perfect time to be focusing on.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because the whole time I sort of felt like it was in the 70s. I don't know why I was getting that vibe. Yeah, it just sort of has like a 70s vibe, sort of like whenever I was picturing like a scene, it would be like in a basement with lots of wood paneling on the walls and just like brown shag carpet. Like, I don't know why I had that vibe. Maybe it was the drugs, but yeah, I don't know.
Don't you remember the wood paneling in my mom's basement?
I do.
And that was only, what, like 6-7 years ago?
I mean, the house that Mitch lived in, the living room had wood paneling, so.
it's true.
But it was an old house. But I'm sorry, I interrupted. What were you saying?
No, I was just bringing up the time period and like how lots of those issues were kind of starting to gain momentum or like become more important for people. So I would agree. I don't think it was too much. Like, I wasn't reading the book. I wasn't like, oh man, this is crazy. I can't handle this. You know, I was like, yeah, this seems very possible.
Yeah, like it wasn't like, oh, another social issue. Great, thanks.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy, he's at 5? Man, that's a little too far, Chbosky.
I was just surprised how many parties he went to, like, for being a freshman. Just like, oh yeah, let's go straight go, like, each and every, like, party almost, like, every single weekend. I was like,
just so many Rocky Horror Show parties.
Yeah.
Well, it was every week. Every Friday they had a Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah. And they had, like, an after party, kind of like, you know, just hang out at someone else's house. I'm like, well, he was a little bit more social than I was. I mean, I still went to, like, stuff like Rocky Horror and stuff like that, like little theater kind of things. But, like, after that, it was just, well, okay, I'll just go ahead and go home and just, like,
I didn't even do that, man. Like, you had more of a social life than I did, then, right?
We were homebodies, weren't we?
Yeah, our group was just sort of like pretty lame in regards to like if you were measuring on a scale of activities you took part in high school, we were pretty. We were like 1 out of 5. Yeah.
Well, I lived in SoCal, so you'd see that you had to be a theater kid or like be like no one. So.
Aww.
Yeah, it's funny. Our high school was like a fine arts high school, but I didn't actually get involved in any fine arts back then. I should have done something with dance. But anyways, that was a rabbit trail. All right, I think one of the first topics before I go and like switch topics, does anyone have any what were we just talking about? Oh yeah, the social issues. Like, yeah. was anybody wanting to jump in with anything? Because I think what I'm about to say is gonna like switch the trail a little bit.
What?
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
We can switch.
Yeah, you can come back to it if you want.
Yeah.
But I think one of the first things I wanted to ask was like, what do you guys think of? What are your thoughts on Charlie, like as a character? Because I think he's definitely like a different thinker, and so I'm interested to hear all your thoughts on him as a character.
Well, I think he was a little bit more inquisitive, especially going from middle school to high school, and like the whole starting of his friend Michael like passing away, and starting with the funeral, and then straight into freshman high school, and him just kind of learning and guiding through that. And I mean, he pretty much like thought like a Ravenclaw. He was just like tearing apart like everything, but wanting to learn more of everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, and Charlie would have been one of those that would have, wouldn't mind getting to know, back in high school. But other than that, he was just more curious than anything else.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I
twice.
bought it.
You've all seen the movie. Perfect. Okay, so what I thought was interesting, I'm pretty sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the book it doesn't really elaborate on what made his teacher tell him he needs to participate more. Am I right? Or is there like, did it elaborate?
It
think
kind
in
of
the
like
movie or
subtly
the book?
hinted
Yeah,
at the
'cause
movie.
No, yeah, in the movie, I liked how they set it up. Like he was it was clear that he knew the answers when he was in class, but
Yeah.
he didn't like raise his hand or anything or give the answers. So
Yeah.
I sort of like the way they displayed that aspect of that, sort of what you were touching on, Michelle, like just being more inquisitive and
I think
Yeah,
it's
he wasn't wanting to
jumped
be
into
more
it in
of
the
a
book.
teacher
Yeah.
pet.
yeah.
Yeah, he was wanting to make friends, not be picked on. He knew what he would get teased for.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of his thought process, what do you guys think was going on with that? Because I think someone raised this in the chat room. Sometimes it just seemed like it was really back and forth. Like, so you would have the really smart, insightful Charlie. There were lots of really good quotes. Like I think I wrote something in my notes. I'm just gonna look at it. But yeah, I found that Charlie like had some really good thoughts on even just like human emotion or like why people do what they do, and he was just really observant that way, and really the opposite of what I am right now. When you have the words to describe what you're thinking and feeling. Yeah, he was just like really good at that, but then other times he seemed definitely like more naive or just like, yeah, he just had like certain areas that he didn't get easily, and so thoughts
Well,
on
I
that.
think like the whole naive thing, when you're trying to kind of fit in, you have to kind of act dumb every once in a while. If you gotta act like smart and kind of, if you act smart and wanting to go and get involved in everything else like that, you kind of end up being kind of like a douche. You kind of end up like being like the athlete, or like the one that's like, oh, well, I know how this goes. I've seen movies, I've read books or whatever, and I've seen how people interact, and this is how they act, so this is how I'm gonna act. So, but then the naive part is that you have to kind of act like other people, but also have to kind of hold back a little bit, or else it's gonna seem like no one's gonna really want to be friends with you, and he's not gonna have very many friends.
Right.
So.
Yeah, he was sort of back and forth in his writing to himself, or not himself, but this person as well. So it wasn't just like at school that he was kind of putting on a show. It was almost his like private thoughts. He was almost two different levels of. And I mean, there's a little bit of that in everybody, I think. Like, we're naive on some things and then really smart in other areas, but it seemed like he had, like, it was pretty drastic, and that came out with his writing. And even, like, yeah, in his English, it's like I think this is something that that she was saying in the chat room was like sometimes even his English skills or his literary skills. 1 second it would be like saying how he like his teacher thought he was brilliant and he's giving him an extra work, but then there would be like literary mistakes in his writing and stuff. So, but
Yeah.
Kirsty, thoughts?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I didn't notice as many literary mistakes. Like I mean, his thought definitely seemed a little bit more naive, but I think that's just the age group more than anything.
Right.
But he was reading books that I'm like, how the hell would you finish that book in a day? So I'm like, obviously he is smart and whatever.
Smarter
but
and just didn't sleep that much.
Yeah, one of the two. But yeah, like I feel like that mixed, like his intelligence mixed with what was obviously PTSD, like kind of mixed together and muddled his thoughts, and so I think that's what was going on.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I guess he did end up having PTSD. In the end.
Spoiler.
Yeah, well, if you're watching the live show for a book review, you're asking for it. Like, we're
Well, I mean, even if they didn't even read the book, if they saw a movie, it'd still be clean.
Yeah.
So.
My thoughts, like reading this novel, it was sort of like, I don't know if either of you guys have read Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, but the main characters in these two books are sort of similar for me because reading it, it just seems like they're a different kind of thinker, and I can't really put my finger on what it is, but to me it almost came across like he has like a mild form of autism or just like something like that, where his brain is just kind of like emotionally switching levels, and I don't even know how to describe why it was coming across that way to me. Like, is that what you thought? I can't remember what you said about that.
I definitely felt that parallel between the character's name is Oscar in Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. But yeah, it definitely seemed like he kind of had something different going on mentally. 'Cause even like after certain things happen in the book, like you'd think like, oh yeah, you probably learn from that and not do that again. But he seems to like not learn from some of the things that some of the mistakes he made or whatever. And so to me it was like, okay, there's something going on here, that there's like a disconnect somewhere with him, because like for example, kiss the prettiest girl in the room and he kisses Sam instead of his girlfriend. Like you'd think there would be some sort of learning thing there, like, okay, well, maybe I should be more forthright about my feelings, but then he's not as the book goes
time
on,
and place.
So yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the wrong time and the wrong place. So that's what I sort of almost wonder if but it's also clear that it was very forthcoming about the fact that he's been in the hospital before.
Yeah.
So it almost like told us he had some sort of like mental issues in the past, but we're not sure what type of issues those were. So
yeah.
I don't know if it's like,
by the sounds of it, I don't think his parents knew until the end of this book, like when he was in the hospital.
Yeah, like it happened.
Maybe they knew a little bit, during Christmas, because during Christmas it seemed like he had like a little bit of a falling out kind of
I think
breakthrough, but it wasn't as extreme as the end of the book.
Well, I think the reason he struggled at Christmas was because he blamed himself for his Aunt Helen dying, because she went to pick up his gift on Christmas Eve and got in a car accident or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think the reason he was in the hospital was maybe depression or just like yeah, just like
Like,
self-harm or something like that because he just like felt so guilty about it. So I think I don't know. It seems like his parents were just under the impression that that was the problem, and they never really knew like
yeah,
why he was the way he was or why he struggled. Yeah, just they didn't understand him until it came out that Aunt Helen was actually a perv, which was so sad.
yeah.
Um,
It's really interesting because one of the classes that I just took was issues in sexuality, and like a decent chunk of the class was talking about pedophiles and all that, and it's just really, it's almost annoying now because it's like literally they cannot, like, people cannot help who they're attracted to, and so it's just really frustrating to know that, but also like be like that's wrong because kids can't give consent. So hello, like, but yeah, it's just really interesting like reading books like this and then knowing, background on people who are pedophiles
yeah,
or whatever. So it's just, yeah, just a whole basket of issues in
yeah.
and of itself.
Well, it's definitely just interesting that um, yeah, like I feel like Charlie, um, what was the note I made? I said, um, I said that he just has good perspectives on being understanding with people. And so I felt like even though this terrible thing happened to him, he was the type of person who would try and be like, well, she was molested when she was younger too. So he tries to understand that people who have experienced bad things do bad things if they
Yeah.
haven't like dealt with it in the right way or whatever. So yeah, it's just interesting that like yeah, people react to bad things happening to them in such strange ways. Like the thing that traumatized her the most, she just ended up doing to somebody else.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
then
like
and then you got like he did the opposite where people can experience those things, yet they chose not to do them. And so I like that parallel that he made.
Well,
yeah,
and I
Yeah.
think his coping mechanism was just like please everybody. Like
Yeah.
he not that he didn't value himself, but just subconsciously he just wanted everybody to feel good and be happy, that he
Yeah.
compromised some things about himself or like kind of hid emotions and things like that just so that people wouldn't be upset or like subconsciously kind of like fooled himself. So I think that was definitely like his way of coping with the fact that his aunt abused him was, just forgetting about his own well-being, his own emotions, all that kind of stuff, to the point of like an extreme. Like it's
Yeah.
good to put other people ahead of yourself, but that's all he did, no matter the situation, even if it wasn't the best thing for him, i.e. Patrick kissing him and like basically using him to get over something or fulfill his own desires or whatever.
Well, I don't think Charlie actually. I mean, I get how Charlie was trying to always make everyone feel happy and, and feel content with their life, but I also think that Charlie was using writing to a friend to kind of get his own emotions out because he was opening up so much to the writings to this particular, his friend, imaginary friend, whoever you want to call him, or her, it. And I think like he was trying to cope with that for emotion-wise. But there's some people that can go and do that, like whenever you're gonna get depressed or anxiety. When I was in high school, I did that. But when it gets and that also goes and helps with creative writing. That's why he was so good at writing different, the different reports and reading through all those books, And for the only thing with mental health is that you can go and get through that on your own, and you can also go and get through mental health with help, which is like prescription drugs and hospital visits and everything else like that. And that was one of the things that I liked about Chbosky's work is that he kind of demonstrated, Charlie trying to treat himself and realizing that he couldn't treat himself. He needed help. Not just from friends or family, just outside help.
Right. Yeah, it was nice to see. Yeah, I think even though like all these things were going on, like drugs and stuff, I didn't think that Chbosky was like encouraging youth to do these things. It was just like a real biography of what youth just struggle with, and it isn't necessarily what's good for you, but it just is sometimes. And so yeah, I like that point about like him pointing to sometimes you just can't help yourself. Like when you're into all this, like it might seem like the answer. And even like, I mean, I think throughout the whole book, what his teacher said about participating, that was like an ongoing thing in the back of his mind. Like, I need to participate more. So it's almost like Yes Man, like the movie Yes Man, where they're like, yeah, you need to learn to say yes to more things. It almost turned into that kind of thing where the teacher was like, you need to participate more, and he's like, okay, and then so he just started saying yes to everything. So in the end, hopefully, like, did it come to like, did we see any sort of resolve with that? Like, did he start showing signs of like, I know Sam had that really good discussion with him, which we will talk about, where she was like, loving people isn't just saying yes to them and being like.
You have to be yourself.
Yeah, you have to be yourself. Like you have to
being
show
honest
people.
from the
Yeah,
beginning.
being honest. Yeah. So I think there was some with that conversation. It probably like showed a turning in his mind, like more of an understanding about how you don't just say yes to everything in order to be friends with people. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there was really a resolve with that in particular. Like, I kind of felt like Charlie was, even though, he started to participate more and become involved in more community things, like with friends and stuff like that, I feel like Charlie kind of was the same through the whole novel. Like there wasn't... I don't know if there was that resolve. I'm trying to remember what the last letter was. I might have to quickly look it over, but I don't know if it was necessarily addressed in that. But as far as like, did he realize not always to be a yes man, or like, did Sam's conversation with him really like register something in him to change him? I don't know. I don't know if that was resolved for me.
Yeah.
I got the impression that it did, because as soon as she said that, he's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be honest right now. But then that's when also he got hospitalized, and like right after that is when he got hospitalized.
Right.
And so I think like since there wasn't a whole lot after that, he didn't really like have time, I think, to explain that he did change after that, because I think when you have those suppressed memories of something terrible happening to you, you're not really truly yourself. Like you're kind of a shadow of yourself. And so I think if he had a few more letters after being hospitalized, I think it would have kind of explained it further. But because there wasn't many, we just didn't get the full effects of the changes he went through.
Right.
So.
And I mean, I don't even know if that's the like most important thing that our boy Stephen wanted to get across. Like I think that was like he's kind of saying maybe like that wasn't the important thing that Charlie needed to realize about himself.
Yeah.
Like, it was more a journey of like realizing what happened to him, and like maybe getting some closure or some insight as to why he responded certain ways to things.
Yeah.
So yeah, like maybe that's probably why there weren't more letters, or like why it wasn't addressed more, because it wasn't super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because in terms of character development, yeah, you couldn't say, like, Charlie started here, and then he grew and really changed into a different person here. But, like, he obviously went through a lot of different things and came to different conclusions and learned a lot, but I don't think he was a different person at the end of the book that he was at the beginning.
Well, not only that, but this was his freshman year, so he did a lot of changes for his freshman year. So
yeah.
we don't really know how much of a change he did for a sophomore or junior or senior year. So he could have either been he could have still been doing the changes, in those 3 years, or he could have been starting to do the changes and then right back at senior year went back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
So we just never know. It was just one of those. I mean, I liked how the book ended with him saying, yeah, okay, this is how I'm going to be doing more open, honest things and saying yes or no and not really pleasing everyone. But he could have easily gone back to it after high school or, not even finish high school.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely like, I think everyone has things in their characteristics that, like, maybe when they're younger, they're, like, really, I'm trying to figure out how to put this, like, that they're really gifted with, character-wise. Like, some people, like Charlie, they're just really generous, they're really caring, they're really observant, but that can also, like, if they don't know how to, like, balance that, like, I think people like that sometimes, they don't know when to say no. So and people like that tend to turn into people pleasers, and they, because they just want to be generous all the time, and they care about people so much that they just don't realize that sometimes it's, like, detrimental to yourself when you don't, like, draw a line somewhere. So, like, there were lots of good things that came out of these qualities of Charlie. Like, I really liked when he was giving everybody gifts, even though, like, the scene where it was just a secret Santa and they were just technically supposed to get one gift for everyone, but he got gifts for everyone, and they were all really thoughtful gifts. Like, I think that was one of my favorite things about Charlie, was his thoughtfulness that was put into everything. Like, he gave people gifts that meant something to him, as opposed to just being like, here's a gift card, or, like, whatever. Like, he thought about people. He was caring and generous about people, and so I think because that was just, like, naturally who Charlie was. He was thoughtful, and generous and kind, and he just didn't know where to draw the line, and he sort of was a people pleaser. But maybe there was a little bit of a resolve. Like, I don't remember any quotes, but Michelle, you said, like, it ended with him saying, like, I'm going to be more honest and whatever. Then to me, that's a little bit of resolve. Like, just even him giving a little bit of a nod in the direction of that lesson, I think. I think maybe that's a good ending. Because, that's not the story that we're necessarily concerned with. Whatever happened to him after, but within the context, it was resolved.
I think another, like, good point that he brought up was the whole, just because other people are going through something really terrible doesn't mean that your pain or what you're going through isn't validated, like, isn't worth something. And that's something super, like, it hits home. Like, it should hit home to everyone, because I'm pretty sure everyone's heard you should be thankful because there's
just
kids
think about
that
this starving children in Africa.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, but just because there's people that are worse off than you doesn't mean that your issues aren't that important. Like, it is important to you, and that needs to be dealt with. And if you don't, like, that's just sweeping the issue under the rug, and nothing happens after that.
Yeah. I think I don't know if you highlighted any quotes in this context, Kirsty, but I had this quote written down, like, about him just having a good perspective on being understanding. He says, "I'm not going to tell my kids that there are people starving when they're upset, because that won't change that they're upset." So yeah, that's exactly like
what I was
I thought that
thinking
too. Yeah, that's so true because that's just like a terrible perspective to have because then on the other foot you can be like, oh, you can't be happy because there's probably someone out there that's happier than you. So it's just like it's just funny that people have this terrible perspective on suffering. Like you're not allowed to be sad and you're not allowed to feel grief and you're not allowed to feel hurt because somebody might be experiencing it worse than you or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely noticed that as well and highlighted a quote.
Yeah, and that's like, you know, the whole stigma with depression and stuff like that, where they're like, whoa, what's so bad? Like, you have such a good life. And it's like, that's not what's going on here at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting book. One thing I thought, this is, what are you laughing at? One thing this might be a little off topic, but I thought it might have been interesting because Chbosky sort of mentioned like how like the specific things that Charlie was struggling with in English. Like Charlie sort of wrote in these letters like, oh, the teacher says I run on my sentences or like whatever. Because I think I brought this up before, and then someone was like, or Kirsty, you were like, well, I didn't really notice a whole lot of literary mistakes or anything. Because that was almost my thought too. Like, he mentioned these literary mistakes that he was making in the letters, but I didn't actually see those literary mistakes come out in the letters. So I thought it might have been interesting if he kind of like developed that more, and we saw that sort of character development. Yeah. Even like him getting better at grammar. Like I thought, like a stupid thing like that would be interesting to me. Just like the grammar, yeah.
Yeah. I think if they weren't pointed out to me, I wouldn't, like, there was a couple of things that I noticed, but it wasn't, like, overbearing. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, his grammar is terrible. It was more so, oh yeah, that's a long sentence. That probably could have been a period there.
But when you're writing a letter to someone, you don't really want to get in. Yeah. It's not like you're going to be, like, completely, critiquing everything you write because it's to a friend or to someone it's only be to that one person, so it doesn't matter. How the writing
it's not super important.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking about the reasoning behind that too. Like we're not seeing his amazing literary skills, like his amazing essay writing skills coming out because he's writing a casual letter to a friend. Like looking through like old diary entries, oh my goodness, it's terrible. It's terrible because I just didn't care. So you would use like abbreviations and you would use like internet slang and just like all sorts of things. So, yeah, I don't think we were getting the English. Yeah, everybody has their English essay writing side and their personal letter side. I just don't think we, as the reader, were supposed to see the English essay writing side.
Yeah.
Of him.
So speaking of writing letters, how did you feel about not knowing who he was reading or writing to?
I have a theory, everyone. I have a theory. Okay, this is my theory. And I thought of it about like a third of the way through. And like as soon as I thought of it, I was like, we are not learning who the receiver of these letters is because I think I'm right. I think that he left it open because you're supposed to be the person receiving the letters.
That could very well be true.
I like that.
Stop. But
she stole that idea from me.
No. I told him that like 3 days ago.
Yeah, you're smart.
I don't know about that, but that was just like the I don't know, but I might not be smart, but that was just the feel I was getting from it. Like he sort of made it feel like you were the one that he also left it open-ended because he also had that friend who recommended you to him or whatever that mentioned you to him. He left that anonymous as well, so it could be anybody. And then it sort of made you feel like you were getting letters from someone you didn't know. Sort of learning about him through this book that was his letters. So that's my take on why he didn't specify who the person was. Either that or it just wasn't important. I guess.
Yeah. Did your guys' copy have like questions in the back for book clubs
Yeah,
and stuff?
mine did too.
I don't think ours. Let me see.
So I think
No.
that was okay. Yeah, because that was one of the questions. Um, why do you, or where was it? Who do you think Charlie was writing to? Does it ultimately matter whom? Or even if he is writing to someone, why or why not?
Yeah,
So that's
maybe
yeah.
he wasn't actually writing to anyone.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a good theory about him writing to us, but it could have been just writing to someone in general. It didn't really have to be like, it didn't have to be Michael, or it didn't have to be Aunt Helen, or it didn't have to be to us. It could have been something. It could have just been left to imagination.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, in that case, like if we're assuming he actually, like we weren't the receiver, then we have to assume someone else was. And then there's
Well,
also
I mean, that
a
was
reason why we
also-
don't know who.
Yeah.
I mean, not only that, but also, I mean, Charlie knew that there was something wrong with him. I mean, why else would he be writing and saying "dear friends" to someone that's open? Doesn't even matter to him. It didn't really even matter who it was. It was just him opening up himself to something or it or whatever, and didn't to him it didn't really matter. Just the way that he was writing and saying, "To be honest, friend, da da da. This is how I feel. This is what's going on." Da, da. You know, it's like he was trying to vent himself. It didn't really matter to who. It was just to open space. So even if it was a journal that he was writing in and he probably just lost it, he would probably gonna be upset, but he would also know that, I mean, Charlie is pretty much an open name, and it's not like he wrote down his first and last name or anything else like that. His name could have easily been Bill or Dave, or just a typical name like Charlie. It didn't really matter who it. It's not like it's gonna be really traceable. The only way to be traceable is if someone knew how Charlie wrote and actually like did fingerprints and crap like that. That's the only way to get him to trace it back to him.
I traced the DNA on this letter.
Do the whole CSI.
I needed to find out who this was.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, like, because he kept saying, like, don't try to figure out who I am, blah, 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 blah. So it's entirely possible that his name wasn't actually Charlie, and his friends didn't actually have those names either. But it's also entirely possible that they just went to a different school, and there's just no way these people would have crossed paths.
Or they didn't even exist at all.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I don't know if it was, like, you mean he might have had imaginary friends?
That could have been it. I mean, he was going to the hospital for mental health issues.
Yeah. I don't know if I was getting the like what's it called? Schizophrenia vibe from him, or anything like that.
Well, that could also be either schizophrenia or bipolar. Bipolar and schizophrenia kind of go hand in hand, sort of. That's how I see it. Schizophrenia is a little bit more different than bipolar, because bipolar just means two different personalities, but schizophrenia could be like 7 or 8 or 10. So.
Right. I never really thought that.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, for me, I didn't really think too much about like who he was writing to. I mean, I was hoping maybe at the end of the book you would find out who he was writing to, but for me it wasn't like really a main sort of thinking point of mine. I wasn't like every chapter I was like, who is this freaking friend? Like, this is killing me. It was more just the story, like the plot and how things were happening that really kind of piqued my interest. So I didn't really like give too much thought about it. I do like the idea like that you're the friend. I think that kind of makes the book more personal, and you kind of invest. If you got that vibe like right away in the book, like you'd be way more invested in it. It'd make it seem a lot more personal, I think.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like that in a book that you like really get into and you feel like you're a part of it.
Yeah, I sort of it was hard for me to stay in that mindset, like because you would just skim past those like greetings, friend. Like you don't really read that every time.
Yeah, you don't notice it after a while.
Yeah, you don't notice it after a while. But I feel like every so often I would remember this theory and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna try and read this letter as if I'm actually the person getting to know Charlie through these letters. So yeah, it did make it a lot more personal for me, I felt. So I'm just glad I like. What are you doing when you're stabbing Michelle?
Sorry,
The cat's
I'm just
being
trying.
naughty.
It's the cat.
I figured it might have been the cat. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
I was trying earlier. I was like throwing stuff at it just to get it to make it stop, and then after a while, I was like, "Oh crap, I ran out of stuff." So
Me and Mitch just got clapper light switches, so now we go in the living room and we're like, and the lights turn on. It's just like when I saw those
talking about
commercials,
going back to the 90s.
I know exactly. When I saw those commercials in the 90s, I'm like, I'm never gonna want to be one of those people. Just like clap on, clap off. Like I'm never.
20-some years later.
I was so stupid. Yeah, and then like 10 years later, here I am.
It's just based on the
it is
setup
so
of the lights.
convenient. Yeah. But anyways, wow. But yeah.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, so if there was meant to be like an actual like friend in the realm of the book, of the story, so we're not the friend, do you think, like, what do you think the reasoning is that we didn't...
Sorry.
That we,
sorry. That happened.
I think you just wanted to leave it open.
Yeah.
For your imagination.
Yeah, I think it just, like, didn't matter because the person on the other end of the letters wasn't...
They're irrelevant.
They were an irrelevant being.
Yeah.
I don't think knowing who they are... I feel like, okay, so what would happen if we, like, if he did reveal who it was? We'd be like, huh.
I think,
Who's this?
yeah.
It wouldn't make a difference because Charlie didn't know them, and so therefore we didn't know them. You know what I mean? It would just be like...
it wasn't anyone mentioned in the book, so what's the big deal?
Yeah,
like, I think if it was someone we knew in the book, like, I think it would have been obvious who, like, the person would have figured out who he was.
Yeah.
And so it's just a completely anonymous person.
Yeah,
so.
I think he would have had to switch formats, too, because I don't think he would write a letter about their own meeting. Like, the only way I could see Chbosky revealing who it was maybe if they got together and, like, talked. And the only reason, like, that maybe could add to the story is if the person receiving the letters had something important to say to Charlie.
Yeah, or went through the same stuff.
Yeah, and could give, like, some insight or, like, some, like, groundbreaking advice to Charlie or something. But I don't think who the person is... I think that would have just been like, okay, who's Alice?
Yeah.
It's a character
Alice
we haven't
is,
seen.
Alice is in the book.
Alice is... Oh.
There's an Alice.
There is an Alice in the book.
It wasn't Alice.
Okay.
We know
I've been
that.
like, okay, who's Bill? Wait, there was a Bill in the book? She wasn't there.
Bill was the teacher, wasn't he?
Or was he the drug dealer?
That was Bob.
Bob?
Bob.
That was Bob.
I think Bill's the teacher,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, who's Persephone? There was not a Persephone novel. I know that.
Yeah.
All right. What are some other questions that you have in the back of your book there? How many are there?
I think there's like 10
A
or...
lot.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's a
There's
lot.
There's about like 13.
13 questions.
There's one asking, like, how did the movie differ from the book?
Oh, yeah.
how
Yeah,
did
we
the
can talk about
casting-
that, too, since we've all seen the movie. But
Yeah, how did
Oh,
the
yeah.
casting of the movie match the characters you'd formed in your mind?
I was actually going to ask you guys this. What did you think of the casting of Charlie in the movie?
I honestly, because I had this copy, the one
Oh, yeah.
that has the movie cover,
Yeah.
Boo! Who
I
buys
actually
the
thought
movie
that
cover?
Patrick I thought that Patrick was actually Charlie until I saw the movie, and then I'm like, oh wait, they got
Yeah.
switched. Like by looking at them, I thought that it would have made more sense. The person, I think they played their roles really well, but I personally think that Charlie should have been the actor who played Patrick. But that's just my opinion.
Well, they could have probably just easily, when they casted, the person that played Patrick, they could have easily casted him to play Charlie, and then right when they saw the one that currently played Charlie, they're like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and swap him. So that could have easily been it, and they could have just done it because of just how the actor that played Charlie, how he sounded. So.
Yeah, yeah, let's just go ahead and swap.
Sorry.
Yeah, switch up.
He's laughing at the. Are you
I'm
laughing at the
you.
face?
Yeah.
I think.
It's just funny on Google Hangouts that anytime there's a noise in another screen, even if you're like there was one, Kirsty, you coughed and it like cut to you and it was just you coughing like it's so. I'm laughing at that. Sorry.
Yes.
I think our thoughts about Charlie was like, what? Why is this guy so cool looking? Like, he's just so, like, he could have easily played the popular guy in another movie, in my opinion. So, like, I pictured Charlie not necessarily as, like, an ugly, like, I didn't picture him as necessarily ugly, but a little bit more nerdy, or just, like, it just seemed like this guy was, like,
I didn't have a like huge problem with the appearance. It was more of like, and it was really intriguing because Chbosky directed the movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
he wrote and directed it.
Yeah, reading the book, I was like, Charlie. I imagined Charlie to be like super fidgety and like he cries a lot in the book. In the movie, he doesn't really cry at all, and he wasn't like I feel like the persona and the characteristics of Charlie in the book, they were almost non-existent in the movie. Like the movie Charlie was like way too normal
not
in a
fidgety.
way. You
That
know,
is
like
the perfect word.
he was.
That is the perfect word.
And
Like,
the whole movie, I was
was
like
holding it in so much that it's like it literally looked like the actor was in pain because he was holding it in.
yeah,
So.
like the whole movie, I was like, this is so interesting because he cast the movie. Like, why wouldn't he make Charlie a little weirder, like a little more like he is in the book? Near the at the end of the movie, I think he did a better job of like when he gets kind of weird at the end of the movie. I think that should have been how he acted during the whole movie.
Yeah, in the movie when he all of a sudden like remembered what happened to him, he all of a sudden just like lost his mind, got like more just like out of it. Yeah, that's the vibe I was getting from him through the whole book.
Yeah.
Just on like a lesser scale. Like he wasn't having freakouts through the whole book, but he was still like, fidgety is the perfect word. Like I pictured him as just like kind of fidgety, kind of like, oh, you want me to do this?
Guy.
Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, like kind of just like
just a little
on
like,
edge, kind of
quirky.
just So and he just like wasn't quirky at all in the movie. So that's what the thing was for me watching it.
And that it kind of sucks too, because that was one of the good issues that I thought it brought up, was this whole, imaginative perspective of what masculinity is. And like, because he was, freely just crying in front of his friends, and his friends understood, and like the whole his dad, like him seeing his dad cry after the last episode of MASH, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like his dad didn't want him to tell anyone else, and it's like, but why? Like, it's, if you gotta cry, you gotta cry. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't make you any less of a man, but whatever.
Yeah, I think like most, just quickly touching on like the other casting, I think most of the other casting was nice. The Charlie casting just really kind of bothered me. I thought it could have been a bit better.
Yeah.
Sorry, whoever played him.
No, he was. I mean, I thought his acting was fine. Like he did a really good job at like acting kind of dejected. But it was just, it was that he wasn't able to play like the awkward. He wasn't awkward at all to me.
Yeah.
He was just kind of quiet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just missing that. I, for some reason, like, when I was reading the book, Patrick came across to me as somebody who was, like, definitely obviously gay, because he was, but not someone who was, like, you know, the typical, like, hey guys, like the gay accent gay, like where you talk to him. I was picturing him reading the book as just like a guy that you wouldn't know he was gay just by talking to him.
A very subtle gay.
Subtle gay, but in the movie he was definitely like more flamboyant.
Boom.
Which I think they went into that as like kind of just kind of like a general audience wise, because most people
to make it obvious.
It obvious, because most people are like, oh well, you know, when the movie came out, I think like in 2012 or something like that. When the movie originally came out, you know, it wasn't. I mean, everyone was thinking, okay, for the whole gaydar thing, it has to be completely flamboyant. It can't just be someone that's, like, completely casual, and then every once in a while you'll go and see a guy kissing a guy going, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm gay.
Yeah. Maybe they wanted a contrast between him and Brad.
Yeah.
Like the typical stereotypical kind of jock and then, like, the flamboyant gay.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I liked the actor that played Patrick though. Like, or just Patrick as a character in the movie in general. I thought he was funny.
I thought
he was a really good supporting kind of male character.
Yeah, that's how I imagined him in the book. Was just kind of this guy who didn't really care, like super laid back.
Yeah.
And, you know, sure, maybe he was a little more flamboyant than in the book, but everything else with him was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
I just said it was on point.
Yeah.
On point, yeah.
I think in terms of the movie, there were a lot of issues that they didn't really develop enough. Like, did they only show Patrick kissing him once?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the book,
just
that was like
green.
A continuous thing. Like every night it would happen. And then my personal thoughts about the movie's rendition of what happened with Sam, like when he had his freak out, I was a little bit disappointed with that, because in the book, as soon as she like touched him down there,
it's okay, you can say it, Kim.
You're married now.
Yeah, as soon as she touched him, like he couldn't do it. Like they had to stop. He was like, I can't do this.
He's like, it just clicked. He's like, nope. Whoa.
Yeah, it was just like shut down. Like it, which is exactly what a trigger is. Like I think the book did a really good job with that. Like he had some underlying like PSD and things pushed down that he has dissociated from, and he all of a sudden had this trigger occur, and he had the right response in the book, I felt. Like, to me, that's how someone would react. But then in the movie, it's like it happened, and he was just sort of like, oh. And then she's like, what? And he's like, nothing. And then they just, like, went back to making out. And then over the course of, like, the next day or something, it sort of started.
It made his, like, realization of what happened less impactful in the movie than it was in the book.
Yeah, like there was no
in the book, it was
violent
like,
reaction.
It happened, and he lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no like violent reaction in the movie, which
They needed to play on the romance, though.
Yeah.
To sell the movie.
Yeah. Well, that sucks.
Yep.
Friggin' romance.
Yeah. But so I thought some of the important issues, like the really important ones, like that was probably the most important thing. Like that was what the whole book was leading up to, was this issue that explained sort of why he was the way he was in a lot of ways. And then that thing with Patrick, like where Patrick would be kissing him like every night. I thought they could have just done a little bit of a better job, because to me it was like important to emphasize that, like, and Rebecca, Nikki asked, do we think they butchered the book? I don't think they butchered it.
No.
I thought
they kind of did subtle tweaks a little bit here and there, but they didn't completely butcher it.
Yeah. Because I mean, like the author directed the movie, so he did a pretty good job at impersonating his book.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to sit down in a conversation with like the author when he's involved in the process, and then the other people who are like, well, look, you have to give us a little bit of leeway here, because clearly the author, like, I'm sure he said no, like, he has to have a violent reaction to this sexual abuse or whatever. And then the guys were like, no, we have to play up it's Emma Watson. Like, nobody can say no to Emma Watson.
This is Hermione Granger. You can't really do that. You have to go ahead, kind of give the sexual fantasy of everyone else that wants to do stuff with Hermione Granger. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, so true. But yeah, what was I gonna go off about here a couple minutes ago? Something that Rebecca said in the thing. Oh yeah, she made the point that like everybody in Charlie's life really kind of used him, like even if they didn't want to and their intention wasn't to. Like Patrick was legitimately his friend, but he still used him when he started like kissing him and stuff to sort of try and get over Brad. And like, yeah, just everyone's sort of, obviously his aunt, and then whatever. Everybody sort of just like used him, and then the only one that wasn't really was Sam. That's what she said in the discussion boards, and I think I agree.
Yeah.
I haven't put a lot of in-depth.
She was straight up with him from the beginning, like, hey, nothing's gonna happen between us, but because she was in a relationship.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, like those quotes. I'm gonna pull up because Rebecca did us a favor and quoted the whole quote for us. I'll just go ahead and pull that up. The 2 lines from Sam. You can't just sit there and put everybody else's lives ahead of yours and think that counts as love. If someone likes me, I want them to like the real me, not what they think I am. So yeah, I think that could be pretty accurate. Like Sam was the only one who really didn't show him, like who really didn't feed this thought he had or this underlying subconscious thing he does, like this people pleaser attitude that he has. She was the only one that was like honest and said like, you shouldn't do that. Like I don't want that from you. I don't want you to just say yes even though you don't want to. That's not love. That's not loving someone.
Yeah. That's just you wanting to go and kind of feel what you're actually feeling now. You're just trying to go and fill that void, but it's not really a void. It's just like a lust. It's not it's nothing actually true. You're just wanting to kind of just get off and get it done with it, and that's it. You're just basically using someone.
Yeah. On the other hand, I really liked when Charlie was like, when he said something like, even though it's not the result I want, I'm still happy for Sam, and like that's what made me realize I loved her. Or he said something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, but I'm really, like, it sucks because I really liked when he said that, and then when Sam said, you know, you can't just do that, I'm like, but it's true in a way. Like, it's not that it was not true, it was just wrong for the situation, I guess. So.
Yeah, that's true, because, I thought the same thing, because what he said was, like, that's self-sacrificing, right? When you decide that, like, like you just want what's best for the other person. And whether or not that's what you want in your life, like that's sort of irrelevant. So coming to a place where you're just like, I want what's best for you. Maybe it's not what I want, but I love you enough to differentiate between the two.
Yeah, and I think that, like, It sucks with a lot of couples who have broken up, or especially like divorced couples. You know, you can definitely tell the ones that are like they're doing it because they know it's the best thing for both of them, and the ones that are, you know, selfish and doing it in spite of the other person. And if they would just realize that they did love that person, and you know things just didn't turn out the way they wanted, they should still wish for that person's happiness. Otherwise, I don't think they truly loved them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely yeah, for sure. So I think they were both a little bit right. But yeah, I think I think your point, I think it was best said when you said it just wasn't right for that situation. Like what Charlie was doing was just, yeah, people pleasing.
Yeah.
But he was also a little bit right. Like I think he did legitimately love Sam.
Yeah.
But she needed something else from him as well as this like self-sacrificing side from him. Like she needed him to be honest with her. He couldn't just like stand on the sidelines and just be happy with whatever came her way. He had to at least try to put that into action, like put his love into go to work, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, she just wanted to know how she could love him.
Yeah.
Because he never really gave that to her. Because
Yeah.
he was always just like, yeah,
Sure.
sure.
He didn't
works.
really
As long as you're
express his
happy.
own feelings to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, because, yeah, if you were going into a marriage with that perspective, that wouldn't be good either. Because if you're just like, yeah, sure, if you want to hang out with that guy, go for it. Yeah, like,
When really,
yeah, like if I
when
was
really
like,
it's like,
yeah,
I fucking hate
Mitch,
that guy.
yeah, if I was like, yeah, Mitch, you go ahead and hang out with whatever chick, as long as it makes you happy. Like that's not gonna work. That's not gonna be healthy. So, like they were both right. You definitely do need that self-sacrificing side, but not in a way where it's like you also have to stand up for what you love and fight for it. That's the part he was missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the part where he could provide what was best for her. And that's what she was asking for, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of all the things I wanted to bring up. Okay, actually, I had another thought on this. So let's talk about when Sam... So when she gave Charlie the advice on how to date, what was her name?
Mary Elizabeth.
Mary Elizabeth. Her advice was just listen. Don't interrupt her. Don't say anything. Just don't tell her she looks nice. So, looking back to that quote, I would almost say Sam wasn't really following her own advice there. Like she told her to be dishonest in this other relationship.
Yeah.
And so, what's up with that?
She was probably just, you know, that lovesick advice. You don't really give the best advice when you're head over heels in love, I feel.
Giving someone advice on how to love someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird to me. Like in that perspective, like she basically told him, yeah, like don't be honest with her. Just like shut up. She just wants to talk. Don't tell her she looks nice because she's like a feminist and doesn't want to hear that. And it turns out
feminists don't want to hear.
Apparently.
Maybe she. I mean, this is high school, right? So
yeah.
Maybe Sam purposely gave him bad advice so it wouldn't work because deep down she wanted to be with Charlie.
Maybe.
You know,
I don't know.
That's true.
Or had like thoughts of maybe deep down she knew that it wasn't going to work, but you know there could be many reasons. Like maybe she knew Mary Elizabeth really wanted somebody and Charlie was there, but she didn't think it should last very long, and so maybe that's why she gave bad advice. Or you know, it could be anything, right?
I think Sam kind of knew that Mary Elizabeth wanted something, but she also wanted a sock puppet. So Sam was trying to give Charlie kind of advice on that, but it just ultimately it really didn't work out. the way it was
Yeah.
supposed to work. Because Mary Elizabeth, she just seems like the character that was wanting a boyfriend to just kind of just be there for just show and not just to actually go and have a partnership with someone, just saying, okay, this is how it's going to go if you don't like it, tough.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, which,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing for a high school relationship to have, and even for first major relationship to have, but for something to again kind of last a little bit longer, which to me Charlie would be one of those people that wouldn't be in a relationship that lasts longer than that and want to have communication. But Sam also knew that was trying to kind of give him advice and tried to help. Ultimately, maybe even curb Mary Elizabeth that way, but I doubt Mary Elizabeth would even want to be actually in that type of relationship. She would
Right.
want to be controlling it instead of just having a partnership.
Right. I think this was like a replaying theme. It's like a really interesting dynamic that Chbosky brought up in this book. Like in other books, maybe you'd say like, oh, these characters have flaws, like you would be able to list like this person has this flaw and this flaw and this flaw, or they have this strength and this strength and this strength, and you could do that with all the characters. But the interesting thing about this book is it seems like all these characters, like, they're in high school, so maybe they understand some concepts about life maybe in their head. Like Charlie's starting to understand a lot about like the human emotion and the perspective. But I think that's just true in just humanity in general. Like we'll understand something to a certain degree, but it doesn't necessarily penetrate all areas of our life, that understanding. So even like when Sam says, like, you need to be honest with people. You can't just do everything they say to do. You can't just be a pushover. Like, that's not love. She might, like, she's on her way to understanding that. Like, she, as a person, is starting to understand this concept, but you see her still, like, failing to understand that concept in other areas, if that makes sense. Does that sort of make sense, what I'm saying? So you see that in Mary Elizabeth. Like, she thinks that she thinks she's coming across as the tough girl. Like, she wants, like, to be, like, really proactive in things and really creative in things. And, like, a part of her doesn't want to come across like she needs anybody.
Yeah.
But then in another side of her, like, I think that a part of Mary Elizabeth legitimately wanted to be with somebody.
Yeah.
And she was legitimately hurt when Charlie kissed Sam instead of her. Like, there was a part of her that was legitimately, like, connected to Charlie and the idea of being in a relationship. So you see, like, that flaw that isn't fully a flaw because she understands some good things about herself that she strives to be but just isn't quite there yet, or whatever. You just see that in, I think everybody in this story sort of has a part of that. Like Charlie, he understands a lot about like human emotion and stuff and like what he wants to be, but then you see him stumbling in trying to learn that as like a habit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I thought she was kind of flaky though. Like, she was like, I don't need anyone. Oh, I have a boyfriend now. Hey, boyfriend, how's it going, boyfriend? It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Makes me glad I'm not in high school anymore.
It's just, yeah, it was funny when Charlie was just like, listening to her, I'm just getting so mad. It's scaring me. It's scaring me how mad I'm getting listening to her. Like, well,
which is the reality of it.
It's like, then,
yeah, right? Like, it's like, you know what? Like, if you're not happy, do something about it. And if you don't do something about it, then stop complaining.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
But don't do what Charlie did.
It's so bad.
Or you can just to kind of like show, hey, no, this is it's a new way to break up. So
Yeah. Yeah. Relationships are not really a good thing to be a people pleaser in.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
But I think that's probably a pretty common thing for people in high school, especially, or even above high school. Sometimes you just don't learn, you know.
Yeah.
Like you just want to be in a relationship so bad that you're willing to just be like, yeah,
In
sure,
a
or like,
relationship with anybody.
yeah, or in any friendship or anything, really, like you just can't say no to certain people, and then you get really stuck. So I think this whole thing with Mary Elizabeth to me is like almost the central thing, almost a central learning experience for how bad it is to just say yes to everything. Because that was like a mess, what happened with Mary Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And it all came from him just not being able to say no. Like, how did,
Yeah.
oh yeah, she asked him to the dance, and then she just like assumed that they were dating.
Yeah.
And then he just couldn't
Like they
be
never
like,
actually.
or what are you talking about?
confirmed
We're
it.
not dating. Yeah.
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 Awkward.
Super awkward. Well, I guess that's central, but also like there's other things too, like Patrick kissing him and even Mary
Yeah.
Elizabeth making out with him. I don't like. He was like, I'm getting so tired of touching her breasts. Just so funny.
Yeah. Added some comic relief.
Hmm. Yeah, I liked Charlie. I liked him as a character.
Yeah.
Funny and straightforward and blunt sometimes in his letters, but with
Yeah.
people he actually had to interact with, he wasn't very straightforward.
Except for that time
Yeah.
he kissed Sam instead of
Oh
his
yeah.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Except for when he
When
got
he-
just
When
so
he
angry.
ruined everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that was wild. I thought it was interesting on Sam's part that she just like stopped talking to him for so long until he just like got beat up, or he didn't get beat up
Until he stopped
until
the guys from
Patrick
beating
got
up
beat
Patrick.
up. Yeah, and then all of a sudden she was just like, "Hey, what's up?" Like.
Yeah, it is weird, but I mean, like I said before, it's high school.
Yeah.
Like that happens so much in high school where this person, and not it's like this person said something about me. You hear a rumor or something like
Yeah.
that, and then that's it. Like people in high school don't really understand, to an extent, they don't really understand like how to forgive in a way.
Or just the concept of offense and how
Yeah.
like sometimes you misunderstand people's motives or like
Yeah.
yeah. Trying to think. What other question? Are there any other good questions in that book?
Do you have any favorites, Michelle?
I need to start like writing down all the things I want to bring up.
I have a
feel like
library books, so I dog-eared all the pages I liked stuff, but I didn't like write down what it was. So
Busted,
Dog-earing
they're coming
pages.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we talked about a lot of stuff. Like
I guess
most of what
Most of the questions that on here, it's kind of like the questions that we've kind of already answered. So,
I love that. I love that. We should like, if there's ever questions at the end of the book, we should not look at them, and then we
Yeah.
should see if we actually talked
Yeah.
about all the questions without their prompting.
Yeah.
What were your reactions when you found out about Aunt Helen?
They were kind of shocking, but not really. Because, I mean, I saw the movie before I read the book, so, I mean, it kind of, like, the movie kind of pretty much hinted it, but it didn't really completely drop more further into it, so I kind of missed it the first time when I saw the movie, so I didn't understand why, Charlie was having such a strong impact on Aunt Helen until I read the book going, oh, yeah, that's why.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that is like a strong point in Charlie's life for Aunt Helen. I just didn't really have much. I mean, it wasn't like she was. I knew some friends who like their aunts and uncles that'd be like shooting up with heroin, stuff like that. That's why they have so many tattoos, because they need the feeling of that. It wasn't that much traumatic to me. I mean, yeah, he did get molested by his Aunt Helen, but it wasn't that. I mean, to me, it wasn't as bad as other people's lives that I've heard about. So,
yeah. I knew something was coming at the end. And so I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, as soon as it came up, I was kind of surprised, but it was more so like I was anticipating it. Like, something's gotta let us know, like, what's going on here. And then when that came, I'm like, okay, I'm glad I know that now. So,
I actually like didn't see it coming at all. Like this whole thing. I'm hesitant to call it a twist because when you say twist, you think it's sort of like a gimmicky thing, like you throw in this big twist and it like blows people's minds. Like I don't think it's like that. It's not like a gimmicky thing where he just like purposely left this information until the end to have that mind-blowing experience and therefore make the book better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like a legitimate journey on Charlie's part to come to this revelation of what happened to him. But I just didn't see it coming for some reason. Like I thought I was just reading a book that was like, okay, we're just like reading about this kid's life and his journey through this like first year in high school, and that's that. Like cool. But when this whole thing happened, it really like rounded up the book for me. Like I was like, okay, somehow it just like all made sense, and it wasn't just me. Because like when I'm reading dramas like this, I'm like, okay, what is the point of all these experiences that the author is bringing up? Like when we read Wicked, there were just like there were a lot of scenes where I was like, okay, why is this scene going to turn out to be important to the story? Like sometimes you just like can't understand why certain things are important to the overall story until the end when you like look back on it. So this was definitely something that like tied everything together for me, and all of a sudden it wasn't just like, oh yeah, well, I'm reading through some guy's high school experience. It was like, okay, it was actually like a journey because of this moment. It just like brought it all together. But yeah, I didn't see it coming. So during the book, I don't remember exactly how it put it, but it when it said it, I think you said you had to go back and kind of reread
I was reading
it
it because it's super kind of off the cuff. It's like, oh, I woke up and realized that I had a dream about Aunt Helen and realized she was doing the things Sam was doing to me. Like it was just like a really quick sort of thing, and then it goes to a different thought or something like that, and I was
like very nonchalant, like this happens all the time.
Yeah, and I was reading, I was like, wait, what? What just happened? So I like went back and read it. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, so that I was definitely surprised by the reveal of that, but like Kim said, it kind of made things make sense. And it was like, okay, I understand now. I think obviously this is why he struggled in these certain areas, or this is why he gets so upset at Christmas, because like subconsciously, his aunt died on his birthday or whatever, but also subconsciously the memories of his aunt are hurting him because of what she did to him.
Oh yeah. So it says I was dreaming that she was doing what Sam was doing, and then he says later, like I kind of breezed that over and I was like, okay, interesting. And then later he says, now it sort of seems like all the questions the psychiatrist has been asking me make sense.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, wait, so it's real? Like that wasn't just a nightmare that you just had? Yeah. That's just like, it just like is so sad. I think what's super sad about it is how he remembered Aunt Helen. Like he remembered her as a really good thing in his life. Mm-hmm. And for so many years he was like beating himself up and depressed and super guilty over the fact that she died going to get him a birthday present. And then it turns out that she raped him. Like that's crazy. Or I don't know if you could call it rape, but she molested him.
Yeah.
So I think it would be sad anyway, even if he never remembered her in a good light, but that especially for some reason just like made it extra heavy for me, the fact that he remembered her in such a good way, and his just childhood memories of this woman were like, I really miss Aunt Helen. Like he said that so many times in the book, like he just missed her and loved her. And then in the end, like can you imagine how shocking that is? Like somebody you know, not just like know and trust, but like you love them. Like you really love them. Like all of a sudden remembering these things about them.
Yeah.
That just
That would suck.
That's crazy. Any other thoughts on that?
Nah.
All right. Well, I am sorry to disappoint you guys, but I have to jet.
No, I think we're pretty much done anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna go watch Game of Thrones.
Oh
my
at a friend's house who has HBO.
Yeah, I haven't started the series yet. I think it started when I was away. Oh no, it didn't. But I need to catch up.
Yeah.
I stopped at like season 3, so I'm like seasons
girl.
behind.
Mitch hasn't seen any of
What's
them.
Game of Thrones?
Yeah. But
So do we have any closing thoughts?
I think the only closing thought is for those of you that are watching, the book we are doing for May and June, if you haven't seen, is The Devil by Jose Saramago.
Saramago.
Check out our Goodreads.
Yeah,
You'll
check
find
out
it
our
there.
Goodreads page. Yeah, just search the Broken Book Club on Goodreads if you have any interest in joining us. We like to get people who are really consistently involved in the book club to join the live panel. That was what happened with Michelle. She initially was just a viewer, and she was awesome and consistent, so she is now a regular member of the panel, and we love having her out. So, yeah, you guys should definitely check out the book club, get involved in this read. I already started it. I don't know if you guys have started it at all, but I'm really liking it so far. It's just written really different, and I'm excited to pick apart a book that's sort of not so basic. Like, I felt like Perks, like there was lots of good things about it, but I feel like this one is going to be like more symbolic or more like more abstract, more challenging, more in depth, and so there might be more opportunity for differing opinions. So it might be interesting. I think it's going to be an interesting read for us. So so check out the Goodreads page if you guys want to join that. Otherwise, I think that is it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone viewing, for joining us tonight.
We like you.
Next time, we'll let you know when the next live show is. So, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.